How's everybody doing?
Screaming, crying, and shit in my pants.
Crying and shit in your pants. Okay. Well, I hope you weren't crying and shit in your pants at home because this is Shared Screens weekly review and recap of The Last of Us by HBO. They've caught on to my tricks by now. My name is Chance Carter. We're going to be talking full spoilers from here on out. So just be warned. Joining me today, we got Brett, a.k.a. Jim Tasty. Brett, how are you doing tonight?
I like to move it, you know?
Okay, Madagascar. Leeron Jass is also joining us. Leeron, how are you doing? What did you think of the episode?
I'm doing great. I love it. I am number one Last of Us superfan now.
Okay, perfect. Can't wait for the second one to see if that changes your mind. And then finally, last but not least, we have Jordan Deeb, the meme lord himself. How are you doing, Jordan?
I don't know why I keep doing this to myself. This is my, fourth time seeing this ending, and I'm still like, maybe it'll be different this time, you know?
Neil Druckmann all of a sudden decides to grow a conscience. That's not happening today, nor anytime in the future. So kind of to break down how we're going to discuss this going forward, we are only going to talk about the first game. Up into a point at the end, we are going to talk full spoilers, at which point, if you don't want to be spoiled about what happens in Season 2, you can dip on out. But that's where we're going to talk about future theories about Season 2 and such. I'm not sure if Leeron is going to stay for that. Typically, she leaves, so that way you don't feel alone. But it is a treehouse of trust if you want to join us there. If that's all you're wanting, we'll have it just jump to the end. But like I said, we're talking full spoilers for him here on out of Season 1 and the first game. All right. Any initial thoughts before we jump into it? Jordan, we had a little bit to talk before, and you said that it was perfect, and I wholeheartedly agree. Do you kind of want to repeat for the people what you had kind of told me?
This was it was one-to-one from the game more than any other episode or any other moment so far. Like, I think the episode that comes the closest is the pilot. But with the pilot, it's really just specifically the moment that Joel comes home from work to, like, the moment Sarah dies, and then, like, kind of the tail end of the quarantine zone. Like, there's added stuff in the beginning. This part, other than one conversation, I think was basically playing through the game. Like, there was no difference. It was cut exactly the same. The set design was on point. The dialogue was straight one for one. I don't think there was any added lines or anything of substance added.
Her being awake was, I think, the only thing, but I do appreciate that kind of twist and that it was purposeful that they withheld the information, but we'll get into that later. Leeron, what did you think of this final episode? And kind of like, did you have any thoughts you wanted to get out before we jumped into the episode, or are you just ready to dive into the breakdown?
I love giraffes. That was one of my biggest. I'm not even joking. Giraffes are my favorite animal. Like, I got very excited when they looked over the balcony and, like, you saw the baby. Like, my mom was like, "You'd make camp here." I was like, honestly, yeah. I would try to make an argument for it. Like, I would know that going back to Jackson is the safest step after we're finished, but, like, there'd be a part of me that'd be like, can we just take them? Can we just bring them with us?
You just want to be one with the giraffes.
Oh, I love giraffes. They're so cute.
So, spoiler alert. Hogle Zoo also has other things besides giraffes. So if you loved the giraffes in this season, I promise you, stick around for next season. There's all sorts of critters running around Salt Lake, and we're going to see them all. Brett, what did you think of this episode? Any kind of thoughts before we jump into the breakdown? Anything you wanted to call out specifically, or are you also ready to just jump in?
Yeah, I just thought, that it was executed perfectly. Yeah, it was gut-wrenching, man. I think there's something to playing it, because, like, when it shifts into the, like, they always do a good job with Naughty Dog of, like, shifting from a cutscene camera perspective to gameplay. And when you shift into that in the game, like, because then you have to take control, you have to take agency, whether you want to or not.
Mm-hmm.
And, but, I mean, they did it amazing in the show. And, yeah, man. Awesome. Just awesome job, man. Awesome.
I feel like you kind of said, that is kind of a theme in The Last of Us, specifically from Naughty Dog, of you controlling the character and doing something that you don't want to make the character do. Not always as crazy as it seems, but it's always at an interesting point in the game. All right. Just before we jump all the way in, I forget her name, but the actress who plays Ellie,
Ashley Johnson.
Ashley Johnson. I was loading something before while like the previews were playing, and then all of a sudden I just hear a scream, and I just was like, "That's the game Ellie." Like I knew immediately that was Ashley Johnson. Her voice is just like that hit me harder than a lot of things in the game for some reason. Was just hearing her in the beginning, and her scene was just spectacular for the short time that she was on there. And so I think that's a good place to kind of jump in, is that Ellie's mother is running through the forest screaming. She makes it to a farmhouse, and then it is birth by combat. This infected is trying to get at her, and she's screaming. She goes and picks up the knife, stabby stab, and out comes little baby Ellie. And she sees Ellie, quickly notices she's bit on her leg, and cuts the umbilical cord right then and there. We kind of flash forward to evening, and Marlene shows up. Now, before we get into the interaction with Marlene, I do think it's interesting how, even though Ellie never knew her mother, they're so similar already. Like, just from this brief little thing that we get of Ellie's mother, we really get to see how much of a fighter she was, and how that was just genetically passed on to Ellie. And she kind of calls it out herself of like, "Oh, you're a fighter." And then I was kind of getting worried about her screaming. I was like, are they going to have to fight off zombies with this baby yelling? And it seems like she was always calming down pretty quickly, and like kind of like knew not to just shut the fuck up. Like, go ahead, Liran.
As she is walking through the house, my father goes, "She's being really trusting that there's nobody hiding in the house, and she is screaming." And my mom and I were like, "Well, she's in labor. Like, what do you want?"
It gets to a point where she just has to hope. Like,
Yeah, like my mom was like, "I feel like there's a certain point in all women when they're in labor, you can't not scream. The
Yeah.
entire world could be telling you can't scream, but like you just like."
no.
There's never been a quiet birth on this planet, and I think everybody understands why. So, go ahead, Jordan. You wanted to say something?
Just this sequence, man, is Ashley Johnson as Anna birthing Ellie is like up there with the nativity scene in terms of important births that we've seen portrayed.
Yeah, truly.
I'm not saying it's better. I'm just saying it's up there.
I mean, she is a Christ-like figure to all these people in the Last of Us universe.
Yeah.
So
It even happened
What?
in a farmhouse. Like,
You know what else is up there is when Chris. What? When,
go ahead.
I really liked it, but when Captain Kirk is born in the J.J. Abrams Star Trek, that was like very emotional and heartfelt.
Okay.
Again,
We did
is, in
it.
fact, a Chris
And Chris Hemsworth, young and freshly shaved, right? He's like, he names his kid and then dies. Like, it's very sad.
You know what? It took us 9 episodes, but Brett finally got there, everybody. He made a really good comparison to one of these old sci-fi series. I just want to give a round of applause to Brett right now. This is growth. Everybody, we saw Pedro Pascal from wanting nothing to do with this kid, and we saw Brett just comparing everything to Jango Fett, and now we get an apt comparison, and Pedro loves Bella, so that's all that matters. All right, so jumping into Marlene showing up in the dead of night, kind of sneaky up on in there. And I'm going to spare you from all the jokes I've been writing in these scripts because it's been 9 episodes and I haven't subjected them to you now. But she makes it in there, and very quickly it's kind of like discerned the situation, right? That she's been bit, the kid's been born. Ellie's mother's like, "Look, you got to take her. How long have we known each other? Our whole lives." And
her dress is tastefully draped over in between her legs as she just sits with her legs wide open.
Truly tasteful. Like, it was very much like there's the perfect amount of thigh coverage to where like this isn't degrading,
Like
but
the
it's
perfect
also
little
like
curtain.
Yeah.
Like,
what a stance to go out in. Let me tell you what, just sitting in a dress like that on the ground, but death comes for all of us.
props to the costume department for being like, all right, whatever, like we'll add 2 inches for television, but other than that, bare minimum.
Yep. So she kind of gives her like the scuff of the information pretty quickly. She's like, "You're gonna take this kid. You're gonna make sure that it's she's taken care of. Her name's Ellie. You're gonna give her this knife, and you're gonna kill me. And Marlene's like, what the fuck? And she immediately is like, no, 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 no. And Ellie's mother's like, yes, 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 yes. And Marlene takes Ellie and bolts, just walks out of the room immediately. She's met with by one of her other teammates and hands off the kid. And at this point, it's pretty clear that Ashley Johnson thinks that she's been kind of left to turn and go crazy by herself. And very quickly, like, she hands the kid off, says, cover her ears, and turns around, doesn't think about it. Like, she can't help but just like get it over as quickly as possible. She can't tell her that she loves her in that final moment, because to stop and hesitate, she's not going to have the strength to do it. And I think that really kind of like, it looked heartless, but like, once you like look past the heartless nature of the act, you can kind of see like what was going on with the friendship. And I really appreciated that there wasn't like this kind of moment, because Ashley Johnson already knew. And anyway, I've
like
go ahead.
It's like she was ripping the Band-Aid off for herself rather than her friend.
Exactly.
I will say, however, though, I'm glad she manned up and did it, because Jordan, I swear to Christ, if that happened and you didn't shoot me because it would be too hard for you, I will haunt you for the rest of your fucking life.
Or eat me, I guess. You'll turn me into a clicker.
Which
honestly, like, I don't know. I feel like it is a respect thing to be like, we've been best friends our entire lives. Like, you should be the one to do this.
Hey, listen, you asked for it, I'll do it.
Yeah, like, I would do it for you too. Like,
All right, don't sound too eager.
Yeah.
it's not eager, but like, if you're asking, I'm not gonna be like, nah, I can't handle it. I'm gonna condemn you to this awful thing. Like, no, like, I'm gonna remove your child from the situation just because I don't want your child to be deaf. But like,
And
yeah, that dude did not cover Ellie's ears at all.
cover her ears at all.
Oh,
No
I'm so glad
movement
I
to
wasn't
cover this
the
child.
Yeah, and like, okay, so little science, right? Safe decibels is 9 or 60 decibels for an adult. A pistol shot is like 180 decibels, like at or around near the pistol, and inside it's even worse. So that Ellie has hearing damage from day one, bro. Like, that's all I'm trying to say.
Maureen didn't tell you to do that to be like, oh, guard this child that's not going to remember this fucking happened. It was legitimately cover her ears so that we don't damage them.
Yeah.
Go down the stairs and cover her ears. Dude didn't even like turn her the other way.
Just stands there holding her. And it's like, you cannot be this overwhelmed by an infant.
Not at all. Like, that was absolutely flabbergasting to me. I felt like it was very disrespectful of Ellie to have this man just like, I don't know what to do. This is a baby. And like, totally forced out the situation.
Imagine living in a world where you've seen a clicker, but you've never seen a newborn.
I'm going to be honest. Every time I'm on a flight, I wish that was the case. Like, but that's neither here nor there, and I digress. So I do think, given the situation, we have to shout out Marlene for her ingenuity of knowing that Ellie will be taken care of, fed, and trained if she gives her to a Fedra orphanage, and that like nobody's really gonna fuck with an orphanage, right? Like, as messed up as this war might get between the Fireflies and Fedra, nobody's messing with kids, right? As long as they have a conscience, and that kind of shows true because Ellie is safe up into the point where she gets bitten. My question I want to ask you, Brett, do you think that Marlene believed Ashley Johnson, Ellie's mother, when she said that she had cut the umbilical cord before she was bitten? Because she made sure to say it multiple times, and us as the viewers know that that was a lie. Do you think Marlene bought it?
I think she did. Yeah.
Okay.
I think she did. Because I think based on what she knows, Anna, right, tells her that she did it before, and as far as we know, like baby Ellie didn't show any signs of like infection or noticeable sickness or anything like that. So yeah, I think she bought it.
Do you think that was the first thing that flashed into her head, or that she recalled when she figured out that like Ellie had been bitten? Is like, maybe this kid is the cure, or maybe she has this because she was being birthed as her mother was bitten, and so it was only like
Ooh.
do you think that kind of like ringed in her head? Because me, they obviously have to take the precautions of making sure that she's not mentally degrading, and that's what that was all about. But I have to imagine that at some point it might have been like after the interaction with Joel in Boston on her way back to Salt Lake. I have to imagine she like it dawns on her of like, oh my God, because then she explains it to Joel later in the episode that because she was introduced to it so microly. Leanne, go ahead.
I think in the show, that is the reason Marlene does so much.
Okay.
Like, I think Marlene, this entire time, the 14 years, has felt awful that she had to shoot her best friend in the head. And that, in part, it happened because she couldn't get there in time.
Mm.
Like, if she had been on time, she would have been there and could have shot the clicker before it bit her. And I think she ended up with Anna's kid and went, oh, she's been bitten, she must be immune. And that is what all of this is based on, is Maureen's attempt to, like,
She might have
make
had like a
Anna's
hunch.
death mean something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like wanting Anna's death to mean something when it just doesn't, and that's just kind of how it is. Like,
I would argue though that at the end, had Ellie made the sacrifice at the end, that her death would have meant something. Like in the grand scheme of things, I think both of theirs would have meant something. But I understand what you're talking about. Like death, like at all, should be avoided at all costs. But I do think, for me personally, that's like the thing that is like the most hurtful about what Joel did, is he took away the ability for Anna and Ellie's deaths to mean something.
well, here's the other thing that I'm going to go into with like Ellie being able to consent and all of this stuff. I don't think a world exists where asking Ellie that question, you could give her a real chance to consider what it meant. Because the way they're obviously going to have in theory, if they'd asked her, the way they're going to pose this is, you are immune. We think, the exact way she explains it to Joel, as if it is a fact. It's not a fact. We don't know that they have all of this stuff ready to go. And from everything we've seen of the Fireflies, they are not well organized enough to be able to mass produce something.
They may
So
get
you're
the cure, but the distribution would be the issue.
Yeah, you're asking a child to make a very grown-up decision while also kind of lying to her. Like, if you're telling somebody, oh, this definitely will happen if we do this, this, and this is why, without saying, but we're not 100% sure because we've never done it before, you're not giving somebody a real decision to be made. You're basically saying, do you think you're more important than humanity? And that's not fair. Like,
Well, that brings up the question: do we believe Marlene believes that it works? Because
Yes, 100%. I think, but
because I don't think Marlene and the Fireflies are like, I don't know, but let's lie to her anyways. Like, they were never positioned as like evil characters in the way of.
We can dive into this a little bit. I do want to save a little bit of this discussion for later. There are some counterpoints I have for Leanne, but I was under the assumption, at least in this adaptation, is that the cure would have been figured out, but the issue is like what Leanne brought up, is the distribution because of the Fireflies kind of regression, right? Like, we know because of our future knowledge of the game that this is ultimately the thing that wipes out the Fireflies, right? And so I think that is more of the question that us, the viewer, would have, is like, would this even work in their hands? Like, I would have that same question if Fedra had gotten it, if I'm being honest. I don't know that there's any one organization that could pull this stunt off at this point in time. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. That was just my short answer to that question.
no, you're good.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think we've talked about the intro pretty to death, because it is, I feel like, something worth talking about in this depth, because this is a piece of new kind of lore and a new piece of the timeline that we could dissect. And having the actress who plays Marlene play her in both, I just want to take a moment to her acting chops and her connection to this franchise, like it really shows in her live action performances now 10 years later. Like she just oozes the Marlene that we know from the games, and it just gives me cold chills every time she's on screen. And it's sad to see her go because she just got blap blap 5,000, which sucks, but that's the way the story goes. All right. God damn it. Kind of the fire shot rings that ultimately will deafen Ellie. We'll find out in part 5. Transitions to Ellie in adulthood on the highway in Salt Lake. We kind of get her very melancholy, very sad after the incident that had happened in Colorado. And Joel, it's Chef Boyardee and Blopper. Those are the two things.
Boggle.
Boggle.
Chef Boyardee, Beefaroni, and Boggle.
That's right. And I really like the callback to Chef Boyardee, and she just does not give a shit. And we walk past a trailer that all of us know from the game because there's a bunch of collectibles in that motherfucking trailer, and it is very iconic on that Salt Lake City highway. And he talks about a guitar in there. For us who have played the games, we kind of know that there's a deeper story in there. I believe that there was a family that ultimately offed all of themselves because they realized there was no hope. But I digest there's a guitar that he sees smashed up in there, and he says that he wants the teacher kind of looking into the future a little bit.
So something that I was thinking of when this part was happening and Ellie was a little bit more distant and not there was I was trying to figure out, is she like this because of what happened in Colorado or because they're closer to the hospital and she's thinking about what this means?
I think a little bit of both. I think that because he specifically says today, you've been a little bit more quiet today. I think she has been more quiet and a little bit more broken since the resort, we'll say. But I do think that it's kind of like the end of the journey, and that's kind of weighing on her.
And I will also give, in a very PG term, after what happens at the resort, like, I really like this scene. My mom and I talked about this a little bit, that I really like this scene because it reminded me of, like, when you have a kid that's dealing with mental health issues, and you will do anything to make them just, like, smile and return to normal, but you kind of don't know what that is. Like, it's part of it. It's like, yeah, she's not going to be crying about what happened at the resort every day, but it's not gone. And now we're getting close to Salt Lake, where it's like, if there's going to be a moment where that was worth it and not just an awful fucking thing that I have to deal with now, this is the moment.
From a real life standpoint, she has not had a good night's sleep since the incident in Colorado that has kept her awake and haunted her dreams since it happened. And so I think just to kind of really echo Learen's point on what was it all worth it then. But we got to get to the bright side because we get to the motherfucking giraffe scene. They're talking and look at my notes real quick. They go to a skyscraper. Ellie's daydreaming, and there's this ladder. I like this nod to the ladders that were plaguing us in the game. It's in the last episode. If you trekked along this long, you get the nod to the ladder. I like that. She gets up there. I don't know how Joel got up because she didn't kick the ladder down for him, did she?
No, she just is starting to put it over the edge and just lets go.
So that is exactly how it is in the game. I was looking down to write notes when that all transpired, and we get the draft scene. Anybody who's played The Last of Us, anybody who knows the ending of The Last of Us knows the draft scene. And I'm going to throw it to Liaren because I feel like you know the least out of the three of us. How do you feel they handled this draft scene?
It's beautiful. It is a stunning scene. This scene is what made me and my family the most emotional of the episode. It's very little, very, very young child, or me at the age of 20 when I see, or 26 when I see giraffes. And she gets to have this moment where it's something Joel can latch onto, and it's this really beautiful moment of him being like, wait, just let me grab these for you. And then giraffes are just a very funny animal. Their long little tongues, I love them. I just felt it was a very sweet scene where it was kind of a moment where Ellie could forget what has happened to her along the road. and kind of be given this little moment of hope because like the giraffes are doing just fine. They have a whole little colony in this like abandoned baseball field.
The Bees Stadium, yeah. For any Salt Lake natives, Lucky 13, I was looking for it and it wasn't there. But the best burger in the world, in my opinion, is like right next to that little area that those giraffes were in. Brett, when Joel says we can just go, all right, like every town we've gone to, every place we've been to, there's been something bad. We can just go back to Tommy's. Did you understand where he was coming from? And would you kind of be saying a similar thing, or would you be taking Ellie's line of thinking and say, no, we have to see this through if you were Joel? Which way would you be leaning?
Yeah, I definitely be leaning with Ellie. I'm just of the opinion that that like what Joel did was wrong. I mean, killing people is always wrong, but I know people are on both sides. But I feel like it has to mean something, and I feel like you have to take that chance. So I was with Ellie on that point. So I was with her, but I obviously get where Joel's coming from. I mean, his attachment to Ellie over that journey is very real, and this is another real comparison, but it's like in Star Wars, like with Anakin, like the fear of loss, man, can make you do terrible, horrible things, and it's awful, man, but it's human. So that's why the story's so resonant.
I fucking hate that was another good one. Damn, bro.
That one was actually good.
That was a really good one. That was a really good one. Shit. All right, perfect. Because I personally understand where Joel's coming from. Like, why risk this at this point? We're not seeing like an overwhelming force of them like really owning the city, right? Like, so the chances of them being there. But I do think Ellie ultimately makes the right decision. I
also think that. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I also think there's something to be said that regardless of any outcome, like just the act of asking is kind of like a very adult thing to be like, wow, we're like right there, but like no one has asked your opinion on this. Like I'm gonna give you this 1 second to kind of have complete control over your life. If you don't want to go, we can just disappear. Like this isn't your only, like kind of just making sure that your kid knows it's not the only choice they have.
Mm-hmm.
And then even regardless of what they choose, that doesn't matter, but you give them that like option.
Well, that's the inverse with Marlene, because even if you believe that she believes that it's going to work, and if you believe that the cure work, like all those layers, like she doesn't give Ellie the choice. So it's murky.
Hold on 1 second. I have to write something down for when we talk about that that scene. I have a really good question. Sorry, guys.
That's fine.
You're good.
All right.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like you ask, even if the answer doesn't really matter, you just give that like that option.
Which I think really kind of shows like the growth in Joel of not really caring about what she thought in those first couple episodes when she was when they were all in Boston, and it was Tess that was asking. Flash forward to now, and I think Tess would be pretty proud of Joel, like not to get too sentimental, but I don't think that conversation gets brought up enough. And Jordan, that's kind of what I want to ask you is, do you think, not jumping too far ahead, but do you think that in the overall scheme of things, Tess would have been on Joel's side or on Marlene's side? Because I feel like on Marlene's side, just based off of the beginning. But then if we look at how much of an effect Ellie had on Joel, do we think that same effect would have been had on Tess?
Here's the thing. I think Tess saying to Joel, hey, don't let me die in vain. Take her there. Let her do this. Nobody knows what exactly the Fireflies need to do. I think if it was take blood or even, take plasma, take bone marrow, I would say all of the adults in Ellie's life would be kind of on board for that concept. I'm sorry if that idea sounds...
I cannot imagine the infection you would get drilling for bone marrow in a post-apocalyptic hospital. That girl is just dying from post-surgical infection at that point. Oh,
gets MRSA and collapses immediately.
Yes, but
Oh my
like
gosh.
you understand what I mean, and like I think if there was if whatever procedure they needed to get this immunity out of her wouldn't have killed her, I don't think a single adult would necessarily protest to what they're doing. I think Tess, if she found out that she needs to die for this to happen, I would say she would be more on Joel's side. Like I don't think I could see a version where they write it that Tess isn't, but I would say like 70% chance she's with Joel.
I'm also gonna say in support of Jordan's argument, if you listen to the HBO recap podcast, they talk about how Tess was originally supposed to have like in the show world. I won't speak to the video game world because they weren't really clear either way, but in the world of the show, Tess had a son and a husband who both became infected shortly after like D-Day of all of this. And she was able to kill her husband, but she wasn't able to kill her child. She left her child locked in the basement and just left the house. I think she would have gone through the exact same process that Joel went through in the show, and that I think it would have been both of them that saw this. We can be in love and go back to whatever being in love means in this world and go back to Jackson, and it be the three of us, and Tess and Joel will have gotten back what they lost, and Ellie gets what she's never had. And like, so like in support of Jordan, I also agree that I think Tess would be on Joel's side just because their life experience is so similar in the world of the show.
Okay. I personally, I'm going to say it for what I think personally, because I want to ask a follow-up question for Brett. Brett, had she been on Marlene's side, do you think Tess would have been the one to talk Joel out of the massacre?
I definitely think Tess would have been able to talk Joel out of it. I think it's, I mean, just the way it's portrayed in the story for both versions, it's that split-second decision that leads him onto the, avalanche of, murder and killing and everything. So, I honestly think if he had, I don't know, that's the whole thing with Joel is like, he can't let go. So,
yeah, I do think that having the family or whatever you want to call it with her, and then the ability, because she obviously would have bonded with Ellie as well. I think Tess is maybe the only person that could have stopped Joel, in my personal opinion. Now, having said that, I do think that Tess would have built the same bond, and I don't think that Tess would have been necessarily on Joel's side, but I think she would have just been like us and understood where he's coming from, and maybe helped him once he had started this kind of going down this road of rescuing her at all costs.
I think if it was a scenario where, let's say Tess and Joel's roles were switched, right? So Joel dies at the Capitol and Tess brings her to Salt Lake City. I feel like I could actually see Tess doing the same thing Joel does, but in a this version where they're together, I could actually see them maybe just kind of, because they have a person to grieve with, there is a higher chance of them letting what's going to happen, if that makes sense.
I would definitely.
I'm not saying it's a guarantee. I'm saying there is a more likely chance.
I think losing their children damaged both of them beyond repair, and they have a chance to have their own little happy family.
I would even go as far to say is like, I think Tess, if she was fancied to staying in Wyoming and not finishing it in Salt Lake, I think that the other two would have kind of gone along with that.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing where, like, I feel like when they got to Jackson and saw what Jackson was, if Tess was still alive, there would have been a very serious, let's sit down. No one asked you if you wanted to do this. We are here. We have Joel's family. There are kids your age. We're happy. Do you want to go, or should we just chill here in just that, like, way that women are?
Yeah,
that, like I'm not surprised Joel wasn't like, let's sit down and have this conversation. But like, I feel like it would have been like that question that Joel asks would have come way earlier.
I definitely agree.
It's like when you make a pit stop on a road trip and somebody goes, hey, let's just like re-look over the directions, the timeline real quick, make sure we're getting this down.
Exactly.
And I think if Tess hadn't died, Ellie's answer would have been different.
Yeah, because I think there would have been an opportunity for them to grow as a family a lot more, especially having that mother figure there and like kind of the more traditional nuclear family of the two family house or the two parent household with the children.
Can we take a moment of silence for how cute that would fucking be? Imagine if they just like she lives and they just stay in Jackson and are just this cute little family unit.
I feel like in any other written by anybody else or like by traditional Hollywood media, that is kind of like what the story would end up being. And I am really thankful that we have Neil Druckmann, so that's not the case because it makes things way more interesting and way more heart-wrenching. So we leave the giraffe scene, make it to this army camp that had been set up a couple days into the infection, and Joel talks and to Ellie and kind of opens up and talks about how the man who had shot and missed, referencing the scar on his face, was himself, and that he had tried to self-delete himself a couple days or a couple weeks into the outbreak because he just didn't see a point on going on anymore. And Ellie, we know from the director commentary, is kind of thinking, oh, this is his way of saying like time heals all wounds. And so that's what she says at the end of the conversation is like, okay, so what I glean from this is, time fixes everything. And he's like, no, people do. And he looks at her and he's like, you did, you little bitch. Now, we get a very harrowing kind of commentary about these camps in the game, but it's just so much more in the show and really gives us kind of like that final glance into Joel's emotional state before Ellie is taken away from him. It is literally moments before. Now, Liaren, did you know Joel's decision at the end of this episode? Did you know what he does?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I knew where it ends up. Yeah.
So for all of you listening at home, I want to ask you this question then. If you didn't know what was going on in that moment, did that spark anything in you for the rest of the episode where Joel wasn't going to let anything happen to this girl? Because for me, that was a moment where like, oh, if I didn't know anything, like this is the point of like Joel is going to destroy the world for this little girl. Like she just gave him back his humanity, and I really just absolutely adore this scene. They start to walk off and they are continuing this heartfelt talk, and he's like, you know what I'm in the mood for? Shitty puns. And she just cannot fucking believe this old goober, this cranky son of a bitch wants her to pull out the pun book. She starts on some puns and immediately a flashbang goes off and knocks Joel out. Now, I don't know how many of you have seen a flashbang go off IRL, but I'm going to tell you right now, even if it goes off at your feet, it's not knocking you out. So that was, I guess he does get hit in the head.
He gets bashed in the back of the head with the gun.
They do the classic action movie. Oh, this is one part gun, one part concussion machine.
Yes, exactly. So they pistol whip him in the forehead, gets knocked out. And we get the scene of him waking up in the hospital, and it plays out exactly like in the game. Brett, what did you think of this scene? Did you think that they did a good job in kind of making it their own because they have the small changes of her being awake until she goes into surgery? Or what was kind of your overall vibe of this scene? Because it is like kind of like the preamble to arguably like one of the worst decisions made in video games.
Yeah, I mean, hats off to Pedro in this scene, man. Just like the look on his face, dude. Like when you have like so much hate like in your heart and you're just angry, like you got like a mean mug on, and he had that mean mug on there, and yeah, man, my like not even like Game of Thrones or anything, but like I just had like a like I'd been stabbed almost. Like it was just like this whole, I was like, dude, this is awful.
Yeah.
Because he just murders like 20 dudes and
very
doctor
tactically and like military-esque, like of his like quick reloads and everything. I don't want to skip to it yet, but I do want to call out the fact that he takes out like half of these dudes with the first assault rifle. It is the second M1 Garand. It is the M1 Garand that is magazine fed. It is the the weapon that has seen the least military active duty service, but has seen the longest in the military. It's the one that they do like all of the ceremonies with. Just like a ancient piece of technology that still works well today. It shoots 30-06, and I just find it so fascinating as somebody who was raised around that shit that it's like, of course you have. I forget the name of the exact rifle, but I found that funny. Shit, I had a good question for Jordan. Jordan, I'm going to think of that question. I'll get back to you. So we kind of go into the scene, and Jordan and I immediately remember the question I was going to ask you. What do you think of Marlene's decision not to tell Ellie?
I mean, in general, like, I've always thought it's, I would love to see the more of like Marlene's actions like 10 minutes before Ellie goes into surgery type thing, because I feel like in the game she also says something along the lines of like, and not that this is ever a valid excuse, but like she's kind of also like, she's not the head Firefly. Like she also has people that she's reporting to. And then I think that she's convinced herself that this is going to work because she knows that she really can't do much. And if it does work, I think she thinks it's worth it. So she's telling herself that it's going to work. Her not telling Ellie, I think, is her saying like she can't give it the chance, and she can build up that narrative in her head that this is what Ellie would have wanted.
Because
kind of the same way that
she is really heavy-handed with, this is what she would want to Joel, to kind of back up your point. Continue. I didn't mean to cut you off.
So I don't necessarily think that Marlene's assumption is wrong per se, but Joel's also doing the same thing to justify his side, where he is convincing himself that Ellie wouldn't want this.
I do agree. I think this is kind of what I would pose the group. If Ellie said, this is what I want, and Joel had that opportunity to have that goodbye with her, and she was at terms with it, would he allow that to happen? Because I feel like it's all in the framing of this situation. And hold on one second, Liern. And I just realized this in at least this iteration, and this is what I had to write down, is that Marlene treats Ellie as a child who does not understand, and Joel treats Ellie as an adult, a daughter who deserves the choice. And I think that's really what sets him off of like, oh, you're not even going to give her a choice? That then empowers me to make my decision. So kind of framing that, go ahead, Liaren.
I have thought about this extensively. I truly think that if she had been awake and Marlene had explained the whole thing, legitimately saying, we don't know if it will work, and Ellie said, yes, I want to do this, I think we would have gotten a gut-wrenching scene where her and Joel cry, they say their goodbyes, and they go. And Ellie dies, Joel does whatever. However, that being said, if the cure then did not work, I think Joel would kill everybody in the building, including himself.
I do agree with that.
That is kind of, I feel like, would have been his stipulation is like, okay, well, if you kill her and it doesn't work, I'm going to murder all of you. It's like that thing from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I've had this dog for like 2 hours, but if anybody does anything to it, I will kill everyone in this room and then myself. Like, that's the energy.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I fall down. Brett, where are you? Where are you in this kind of argument? Do you think that Ellie could have talked him down if this had been presented in a different manner? Because I think it's two adults kind of arguing. Should she shouldn't know. She should have a choice, and then they ultimately both decide to make a choice for her. Do you think that had she made the choice in front of Joel, he would have been able to back down?
Yes. Again, what's kind of like what you said earlier is like why the story's so interesting. It's built on like a mountain of what ifs, and so her, you could look at her, we have to make this worth it, scene as like her being like, yeah, I'm willing to do this, but we'd never really see her explicitly give consent to go through the procedure, and so yeah, that's what makes it so powerful. But I do think she would have been able to talk down Joel. It would have been hard even for her to do it because nobody else could, but I do think it is possible.
Go ahead, Jordan.
Something that I think is an interesting thing for some people to consider with all of this as well is the theory of this type of stuff that like is taught with medical ethics, where in if somebody is sick to the point that if they start going through cardiac arrest or whatever, they think it's kind of their time. Doctors have to retrieve somebody has to be able to pull out the actual legal DNR, the do not resuscitate. There's a separate medical ID. It can't be attached to an already existing one. There has been law cases saying that tattooed DNRs are not valid. The spouse or the child saying, hey, there is a DNR, like they have to physically see it. And if they can't, it is policy to revive that person, even if the person wakes up and goes, I have a DNR. And the logic behind that is that's the route you can reverse. You can just, okay, well, here's your DNR, don't lose it, and next time we won't do it. Versus, oh, well, the person died and nobody can pull up a DNR. Did we let an innocent person die? So
And
Joel,
on top of, sorry.
I mean, I was just gonna say, like, so Joel's kind of not saying that medical ethics should, necessarily be what everybody goes with for this, but that's kind of the logic there.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh no, all I was gonna say is that on top of that with the DNR, even without DNRs, when you get into people who are in like medically induced medically induced comas or in comas that they're not sure if they're gonna wake up, the hospital asks like 3 people from your family, hey, are you all sure this is the choice we want to make? And you have to like verbally say it multiple times in front of witnesses. Like, and again, it's because you can't undo killing someone. Like,
You can undo not killing them. You just kill them.
yeah.
I think
It sounds vulgar, but like it's true.
it is true, and I think Brett kind of having that statement about like this whole premise is built off of what ifs, I think carries a lot of weight, but that also allows for a lot of fun discussion. And I don't know if y'all remember this or not. We are all in the video game space, so we remember that this was a hot button topic of whether or not Joel was the bad guy, and I'm just trying to humanize the decision so that way it's clearer going forward that Joel made the wrong decision, but he's not the sole person to blame. I think just because he made the wrong decision doesn't discredit anybody's feelings for understanding why he made that decision or also wanting to make that decision.
Yeah.
The whole premise of this series, or at least this season, stated by the directors of the game and the show, is the dangerousness of love, specifically from a parent to a child. And I think this perfectly demonstrates that danger. Just kind of giving you guys like a background into like why I'm so like trying to like flesh this situation out, because I really personally don't like that dialogue. I think there's way more interesting conversations to be had than he wasn't the bad guy. Yes, he was.
Well,
There's more interesting shit to dive into about humanity and the situation.
can like I go on a rant really quick?
Go ahead.
I really need everybody, not just gamers, like this is an across the board, people watching television, watching movies, reading books. The main character of a story does not mean that they are the hero. It means they are the protagonist. A protagonist may be a hero, but they are not automatically the hero or the good guy. Protagonist just means that is who we are following through the series, through the story, whatever is happening. That's the main character. That is the person whose motivations and goals we will be following. By the same vein, not every Kathleen, the Fireflies, Fedra, all of them are not necessarily villains or bad people. They are just antagonists in like the purest form that an antagonist's views and goals oppose what the protagonist wants. That's all it is. There isn't like the beauty of The Last of Us is they never really make a choice on like who's a good guy, who's a bad guy. It's just like, here's Joel and what Joel wants. These people do not want what Joel wants, so they are at odds.
Yeah.
And how they get out of it is like whatever. We don't live in a world where you can like assign the good or bad like that we live with now. Like those morals no longer exist.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a really like well adequated point. It's just because the main character is the protagonist doesn't mean that they have to be the hero. And I would argue that this is a more interesting story because the protagonist makes the wrong choice. Like that to me breathes humanity, and that's what makes us us. Go ahead, Jordan.
Oh, I mean, I was gonna add, but Leon ended up saying it at the end that like I don't think you can put labels, good guy, bad guy, right decision, wrong decision. So clearly in a world where none of our morals exist, like we could all say Joel's killed a bunch of people. Joel entered this apocalypse knowing that if he doesn't go in with his gun up first, he's gonna get hit back. Like, look at the people he had to hold up, that little Native American couple in Wyoming who made him soup. Joel didn't want to do that, but if he didn't, they could have turned around and done it, which is why Ellie then does it to David, and we prove that she did that for a good reason. Like, you end up having to go up with your fists up, because if you don't, you're done. It's kind of a dog-eat-dog world.
And like, everybody's got their own biases. Everybody's got like their own thing. And I'm not saying go out and murder people or break the law. That is not what I'm saying. We have all decided on the morals of our society. If you don't agree with them, I don't know what to tell you. However, morals are a social construct. Ethics and morals are completely a social construct. We decided millions of years ago that murdering somebody for no reason was bad. For better or worse, that has been how we are operating. That no longer applies when the entire world falls, because like everybody that we meet in that show we should assume has killed at least one person.
Yeah.
Like,
that's a safe assumption. If Ellie's killed somebody, everybody's killed somebody. I mean, by the end of the show, it makes sense that Ellie's killed somebody. But I do want to pose the question. Actually, we'll get there first. So we kind of wrap things up in the hospital room. She says to escort him out to the... Sorry to bring an abrupt end to that, but I feel like we can wax poetic about the show until the sun comes up and the cows come home. So she says to take him to the highway, give him a couple things, and be on his way. They make it as far as the stairwell, and he kind of keeps stopping, and this dude behind him's getting super sick of it. And in the stairwell, Joel snaps, and we get to finally see what full tilt, unchained Joel really can fucking do. And let me tell you what, somebody with a little bit of the know-how, did they John Wick this and nail every aspect? No, but did they adequately show a man eager to save a person that he loves? Yes. And it gives me goosebumps. I thought that this was, for the way that the show goes, Jordan had talked about maybe wanting a little bit more of an action sequence, but I don't think that's Craig Mazin's way. Like, if you look at Chernobyl, he's not super into the action sequences, and I think for his style, this was kind of the best that we could hope for. Am I wrong? Do you guys kind of agree on that kind of sentiment?
Dropping all the sound out, inspired choice.
Yeah.
Taking all the sound out of it was such a good choice.
Well, we don't really hear a gunshot until it's Marlene, which I think was a beautiful artistic choice. And we really get a kind of, Jordan, or I believe it was you had mentioned him kind of cycling through the weapons, and we get to see him pick up this old weapon from like the 1940s, 1950s, cycle through that, make it through his 2 clips, picks up the M16, starts cycling through that. He makes it to the hospital, or into the pediatric center with, like, I think it's a Desert Eagle, or it's some, like, it looked like a big pistol when he picked it up, and then it just looked like a Glock when he shot him. But I just found that, like, when he picked it up, I was like, oh fuck, like, you got that big honker, like the revolver from the game, and you're gonna blow this.
Oh, yeah, that sniper revolver, the most overpowered weapon you get in the damn, love it, favorite weapon in the game.
100%. That weapon specifically in the remake, for all of you who now want to go back and play the game, I would highly recommend playing the remake on PS5. Lee Aaron's going to be joining you. I think that would be a fun series for us to stream.
I'm going to be playing it on PC when it comes out later this month.
Yay! Let's stream it on shared screens and commentate with her. In the comments, if you would like to see that, let us know. I'm not trying to put Lee Aaron on blast. We can have 2 playthroughs.
No, it's fine. I was going to stream it regardless. So, like, yeah, if we want it on shared screens content, let me know.
Yeah, hell yeah. I forget where I was going with that.
he went through that hospital flawlessly. Like, this might be the first time on TV a character's ever done something poggersly. Like, we made it, guys.
Bro, poggersly especially.
Poggersly, very poggersly.
This morning, that watching the show is like you're watching the best gamer playing The Last of Us. Like, the
Dance
gamer
gives that
that's
100 Thieves sweatshirt to Pedro Pascal because he is a pro gamer.
Bro,
Yeah,
he's daddy as well. Like, let me tell you what, he's coming for all the titles. He can have all my shit, including my bumhole. The thing I wanted to get at is if you're replaying or playing through the remastered, I forget what it's called, the Diablo. Is that what it's called? The little sniper pistol. When you upgrade that and you get rid of like the shitty wood handle and it gets like the nice Palmer handle and shit like that, the guns look amazing once you upgrade them. That's all I'm gonna say. I really appreciate that fact. As you're upgrading them, they're looking better. But he makes it to the pediatric center and he says to unhook Ellie. The doctor's like, "You're not taking her out of here." And for those keen eye viewers, we all know who that motherfucker is. And he blap 5,000s him right in the eyeball. Do appreciate he didn't kill any of the nurses.
My father went, "Why are we sitting on this man's dead head for so long?" And I was like, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's fine."
You'll get it in a second, Dad.
Yeah.
By a second, I mean a year and a half.
This is the other reason I don't like people be like, "Oh, Joel's a bad guy. Joel's a better person than me." I kill the nurses every time I play through the game.
I was gonna say like, because man, it's been like a little bit since I played through, but like, can you avoid kill? Okay.
Oh, it is 100% optional.
I think I killed everybody just because like I'm on a tear right now in the version, like in the character.
So I want to say,
I'm gonna get the kill streak, man.
I want to say that the entirety of The Last of Us, but I'm going to refrain from saying that because I'm not entirely sure. But I know that this last level you can go through and not kill anybody except for the first guy that happens in a cinematic when you like get your shit back, and the doctor. You have to kill both those people. I don't think the first one counts because it's a cinematic, but you have to kill the doctor. You don't have to kill the nurses. You don't have to kill anybody else on the floor. And I think that's an ingenious thing that Naughty Dog did. I don't think they understood what they had done in that situation, but they were able to take that and turn it into something beautiful.
I also remember, and like, I know that Greg Miller tells the story, but I know he's not the only one. I think I went through something similar, that people walk into that operating room thinking that the game's going to give you a choice. But you have not had a choice in anything the entire game. This is the story Naughty Dog is telling, regardless or not. A game does not suddenly give you a choice at the end. I mean, Force Unleashed 2 did, but that one notwithstanding, no game randomly adds a choice in just at the end. You're either making choices the whole game, or there's a story they're telling you.
Yeah.
And then Joel picks up Ellie. Doesn't kill Laura Bailey or her friend, and makes it to the elevator. Before we continue on, is there anything like I personally, just to kind of get this conversation going, I think that from the gameplay perspective, because all of us know how hard this game sequence is, like in game, if you're playing on anything above normal difficulty, this sequence gets pretty hard and it makes you use everything in your tool kit to get through. And for me, this is a perfectly executed action sequence and build up to kind of this ultimate choice. Was there anything else you guys wanted to dive into that before we headed out? Perfect, because I do feel like
I just like how it was basically cut the exact same. The camera angles, everything about it was a 1-to-1.
Hell yeah. So then
So what I'm hearing is when I play the game, I should play it on very light mode.
Yeah, you're gonna want to play it
yeah.
on baby mode. I know
Easy.
you are, and I say this with
Aw.
love.
Oh,
But like,
okay.
Stretch.
Okay, you do know her better than me and her game.
I'm a very, very bad gamer. Again, if you haven't watched our Gotham Knights like video thing, while I was playing that game, my controller does not match up with my computer, so I literally had a note telling me which button was actually which. Like, I'm not a good gamer.
Is that because you're using the GameCube controller?
Yes, and so I bought a.
she's a purist,
I bought
guys.
an
She only
Xbox
plays.
controller.
Oh, nice.
There
Okay.
you go.
Hell yeah.
games.
That's a good looking
Looks
controller.
clean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Xbox
I was gonna
makes the best
say-
colors.
Go
They
ahead.
do. I was gonna say the set design was awesome, but they didn't have that hallway with the specific red light and the firefly symbol.
Mhm.
'Cause that is so iconic to me. Maybe I'm just like projecting, but like when I think of that whole scene, I think of
That
him
long.
walking down that hallway.
No,
that long
I will
hallway.
say there is one thing that bothered me, which is in the game, one of the guards cracks and gives you where Ellie is. And here, Joel's just killing everyone, and he's following the signs. And I don't like the assumption that they would still be doing this in the pediatric surgery wing, as if like they get to choose between all of them.
Okay, to be fair though, if you're going to find tools the right size to use on a child, the pediatric wing is the good first place to look.
But if the only sanitary rooms in the cardio
I mean, none of these are sanitary. Let's not pretend that a single room in this hospital is actually sanitary. None of this is sanitary.
I think it makes sense for the game because like we need to know, but I think it's okay for the show. Like I also had that like, how the fuck does he know? And then all of a sudden he's just looking at the pediatric sign knowing. But it is a little bit of like in the game you need to be told expressly where to go because you are the person going there. And I think in the show they can kind of let it be a little bit more cinematic in that moment. And as much as I would like to see him interrogate those dudes on the stairwell, those blap blap sounds, everybody knew he was fucking coming before he even made it up those stairs. Like, but picks up Ellie, makes it down to the parking garage where Marlene is waiting, and she tries to talk him out of it. Has a very good argument for why he should stop, and she says it's not too late even now. And it cuts to Ellie waking up in the car. And for those of us who know, and I don't feel like I need to repeat it because it's a lot of like really good lines that I don't want to butcher, but more or less the moral of the story is that Joel kills Marlene because he knows that she would just keep looking for him, and that Joel lies to Ellie. The only addition is that raiders came to the hospital, and that's why they left in such a hurry, because I do think her being awake and seeing what the hospital was like kind of why the fuck am I not dressed and just waking up there? A kind of question I wanted to pose to the group. Were you okay with that? Because I feel like this is maybe the only instance where they changed something and did give more explanation to match the tone, but I feel like the more information he kind of gave to her, the thinner the lie got. And maybe that was by design. Am I the only one that was kind of picking up on that, or was that something that was kind of intended?
It is an interesting addition for him to add that layer to the lie. And I don't think I could get into the meaning or what that might add without part 2 spoilers. So personally, I want to save my thoughts on that aspect for the Treehouse of Trust section.
Okay, perfect. Laren, do you have anything to add to that, or?
I'm a dumb bitch, and at 14, I would have just been like, where are my clothes? And if he was like, well, raiders attacked, I'd be like, that tracks with everything we've been through. Okay. Yeah. Like, honestly, that's just kind of the person I am, where I'm like, yeah, that tracks, and roll back over and go back to sleep. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Like, even when he said it, I was like, okay, yeah, this seems like a sound lie.
This seems like a good plan. What about you, Brett? Did you think that it kind of was more buyable, less buyable than in the game?
Yeah, because I think the difference is in the game, he doesn't say raiders attacked, right? He just is like, hey, they ran tests. She doesn't
see any of the hospital, and I think that's why they had to make the light, but continue.
Right. So I think just based off the change from the game to the show and knowing what he says in the game, and then just like natural life experiences, anytime you get more specific with a lie, that means, or like with something, a story or whatever, that means you're lying usually, right? So yeah, I feel like and obviously she is kind of suspect anyways, and yeah, Treehouse of Trust, like, yeah, so.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. Well, it kind of sounds like we have reached the point where we should kind of give our final thoughts before heading into the infamous Treehouse of Trust. I have just poured myself a fancy new beverage to celebrate the final time we get to talk about this series and the future before we get season 2. Liren, was there anything you wanted to talk about? Do you have your parents' review of this episode before we say goodbye to you until your next appearance on these shared screens?
The last thing I'm going to say is I love Craig Menzin even more than I did before. I think he is a brilliant writer. Neil Druckmann is too, but I knew that already. He just he says in the after show thing that he was like, when Neil Druckmann told me what in his mind Ellie's mother's backstory is, I was like, we have to put that in, and like the other stuff he talks about putting in, and like how quickly his script got me attached to Tess. I do not give a shit about Tess in the game. I am still upset that Tess in the show died.
And
I
maybe
said this to Jordan.
the only issue I have with the entire series is that kiss. I'm not gonna lie. Still kind of weird. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. I feel about Tess the same way that I feel about Rebecca in Ted Lasso. She just means so much to me. I've been trying to figure out what Tess tattoo I could get for, I shit you not, 4 weeks.
A mouth and a mouth with fungus coming out.
No. No. Yeah, I gotta figure it out. But and then as for my parents, hey, I learned that my parents think that I could murder to protect somebody I cared about without hesitation.
I
Which
do.
is always a good time. Yeah, this is like a thing I've learned that a lot of people think about me are like, yeah, no, you wouldn't hesitate. I'm like,
I don't
okay.
think, like, if I'm being honest, I don't think Alec could. I think he's too kind-hearted, but I think most everybody else in shared screens could. Sorry, that was meant as a joke, and
No,
I
it's
played
fine.
that way
No,
too.
it's
All I could think of was that Jordan says all the time he's waiting for the wrong person to bump him on the street to like
Well, the right
release
person.
all of his rage.
It's the
Right
right
or wrong
person, but it's
person.
the wrong person.
Yeah.
Like
Um,
I just need a motherfucker to give me a reason.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty much. And then my mom, her comment was, I like that at the end of the day, Joel has a moral compass that, while flawed, is very strong. Even if it wasn't Ellie, if it had been any other little girl, or child at all, like if it had been Sam, was basically what she was saying. That she doesn't think he ever would have been down with it. It's not just that it reminds Joel of Sarah. She also said that she really liked, I couldn't remember if Joel says that he got the scar from trying to kill himself in the game.
No, he doesn't.
He does?
That's
doesn't.
new.
doesn't.
That's
Okay.
new. That's
Yeah.
new.
My mom was saying that she really liked what that made in retrospect Henry's death mean, in that Henry was able to do it correctly. Like the same thing that happened to Joel happened to Henry, but Henry was actually able to be with that like family member in theory, where Joel couldn't do it, but now he's seeing the big reason to come back to life. And basically my mom was all down with what Joel did. She was fully down with what Joel did.
Dang.
And I do
that's-
think she brings up an interesting question that I do want to pose to our viewers. I know I've asked you guys a lot of questions, but she says that she thinks that Joel would have extended that same thing to Sam, and I had never actually thought about that, and I have to agree with her. And so I want to hear from you guys at home. What do you think? Do you think Joel is just that kind of morally right person when it comes to kids in that aspect, that he would not be down for this, even though he didn't have the issues taking that burden off of the woman in episode 1, throwing the kid in the fire? I do tend to agree with your mom. Jordan, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. I think I forgot what I was gonna say.
Okay, I have
Be
one more
honest.
thing from my mom, and then I swear I'm done.
I apologize for cutting you off.
No, you're totally fine. What I was surprised to hear my mom say was that she also agreed with Joel's lie, and that she would do something similar, that it's one of those white lies you tell your kid. Because, like, little insight into us growing up, my parents always kind of have raised us with the idea of, like, if we ask a question, they're not going to lie to us. So it was just, and that they give us honest answers, including when 9/11 happened and I was 5, my mom just straight up told me what happened when I asked. That has always kind of been our relationship, is they're very honest with us. So I was really interested to see that in this situation, she was like, no, that's like one of those white lies you tell your kids to keep them from panicking, because you know they're not emotionally ready to understand how you got there, which was just a very interesting experience for me personally. That was not the answer I expected.
That reminds me, like Chance, you were saying, like who can and couldn't kill someone that they loved for. I do think that, like, even people that normally might not be able to just kill for someone that they love for in a general sense, I think the parent dynamic adds a different layer to that than if it's a spouse or a friend or a kid doing it for a parent. Like, there is just something inherently in nature of parents are there to protect their kids. You see it across every species ever. Like, and
Jordan
I
has
think
met my father. He is the most docile man on the planet. I think if somebody were threatening me, like, that is the only way you could get him to kill someone.
Leon's met my mom. I wouldn't say docile describes my mom, and my mom would definitely kill a hospital full of people for any of me or my siblings.
That's good to know.
Your
I've
mom
got-
would go full John Wick.
My mom's never touched a gun in her life.
I just
but, like,
imagine Jordan's mom doing like the gym like gun kata shit through the through a hospital to rescue poor baby Jordan. But if that's all you got for us, Aaron, I will let you go for the evening. Thank you again for joining us for this series. Where can people catch you on the interwebs? Where can they catch you on shared screens? Go.
This Saturday, the Shared Screens podcast will be coming out, and if you want to see the Shared Screens squad do D&D, let us know in the comments on that podcast, because we floated it, and I really want that to be an upcoming stream. Other than that, you can find me on all social media at Lear Jess. If you don't know how to spell it, just find Jordan, and you'll find me from there.
I can tell you that's a good way to find her. Well, Aaron, thank you once again. Thank your parents for us. They have created quite a bit of thought games in my own head after we get done recording with your mother's reviews. So once again, thank you. And I do hope you have a good evening.
Have a good night, guys.
Okay, Brett, I don't know if Chance is going to listen to this segment he's going to cut out. So we'll never know if this makes it into the podcast or not. But I think Ashley Johnson's portrayal as Anna, third best Ashley Johnson performance ever. First, of course, regular Ellie. Second, her stunt as Gwen Tennyson in Ben 10 Alien Force and Ultimate Alien.
I was gonna say Captain America's muse for 2 seconds in Avengers.
I told Jennifer about that, and she's like, "What?" And I was like, "Her part was cut."
Oh yeah, that was her.
Yeah.
It's still in the movie. She had an expanded part where she's like,
No,
really
I have
going
seen
like-
those deleted scenes. Yeah.
All right, everybody good to go? You got your bevy?
I do.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're in the Treehouse of Trust. Jordan joined me and got himself a beverage. So if you would like to crack one open, I know this is going up early on a Monday, but if you're watching it in the evening, hell, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Brett's drinking coffee, and it is like 11 o'clock his time. So time is a construct. Join us in a beverage. Now, gentlemen, what kind of going forward? There were some things in the episode you guys were talking about Treehouse of Trust. Jordan, I want to throw it to you first. I'm going to be honest, I forgot what it was referencing, but kind of, I believe it had to do with the doctor in the hospital and that whole sequence.
Well, no, I think one of the things I said was about what Joel's lie means, but I also did want to talk more about the doctor because I love that they didn't. Excuse me. There's no hints. There was no nudge. There was nobody calling him Jerry or Dr. Anderson. In season 1, he is the doctor we get in part 1. He has a face covered. He looks like a generic man. Other than the fact that we kind of see that angle of him, but I think that could also just be argued of like, this is the only kill of Joel's we're seeing up close. We literally see the bullet hole. So like it could be framed as just, oh, they're showing us how aggressive this was. I'm glad they did nothing with him. There was no, please, I have a daughter. There was no, I think, what was Josh's prediction? That there was going to be a post-credit scene of like young Abby running in and being like, Dad!
Picking up
like,
the scalpel.
Laura Bailey from Critical Role. Like,
Yeah.
I'm happy that they treated the doctor the way they treat him in part 1, because I think for the general audience, that whiplash of, oh shit, this guy's actually like going to matter a lot more. And I'm sure they recorded his scenes that they're going to use next season already.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah. Now, as for Joel's lie, and I think what that might have to do with the Treehouse of Trust, I think in part 2 or whatever, however they expand the seasons, we know that Ellie at some point goes to the hospital and tells Joel, tell me what happened here. In the game, she does that because she walks in and she probably walks past 45 corpses, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be really interesting where she goes being like, I feel like Joel is hiding something. See all these dead people and be like, fuck, man, maybe there were raiders. But there'd be something there at the end that tells her it wasn't raiders, it was Joel. And maybe it's like a voice recording that Marlene does, I know that we see Joel shoot her in cold blood, so she wouldn't have been able to do it after he takes Ellie. But I think if it's Marlene doing a voice recording as she waits for the elevator to come down, and maybe it's still recording and she hears the rest of the confrontation, like I think it's going to add to that lie.
So in the part 2,
is that what happens?
In part 2, the dude that was dating Abby and is dating the other chick was there, and he got away. Correct?
Yes, I believe.
There were survivors of that incident.
Because he like comes and gets her or something because she's out with the zebras, which is what I was talking about the animals and shit.
Mm-hmm.
He's definitely there. I think that it's implied that
Owen is a Firefly with her, and those two are together up until like they're in Seattle for a little bit, I believe.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's implied that like some of the kids that were with this group were in the hospital somewhere or close by.
I do think you bring up an interesting point of him kind of covering his tracks on the massacre. In the game, Marlene does have a few, in the first game, Marlene does have a few recorders that really kind of say where her perspective is coming from and how hard this decision is for her. And that's where we kind of get to understand from a gamer's perspective of like how hard this is for her. I wonder if they will incorporate that into season 2, but it is more of like the possibilities of Ellie's cure. Is that kind of like because that would be like my kind of nod to the recorders and also like how Ellie finds out? Or is it going to be the in-between season that you and Alec had kind of talked about, and like that's something that she's asking Joel a lot about because like there isn't a clear conclusion after she goes there?
I could see it both ways. Something that also just popped into my head was when we see Joel on this rampage, there's a person in the rampage that they almost make a point to show us that Joel like kills, and it's a guy that is at a bunch of CCTVs in the security room.
Mm-hmm.
If those were recording and Ellie goes and finds camera footage of Joel killing all these people.
Maybe it's something like where she gets the cassettes, because I'm sure Salt Lake won't have power by the time she comes back, and she isn't able to dissect it. And instead of him, because he follows her to Salt Lake, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And instead of him following her and knowing, she comes back and watches them, and then that confrontation happens in Jackson. Man, we're writing this show for Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann already. Baby, hire us. Come on,
hire
Naughty
us.
Dog.
Come on. I shared screen's writing room.
Yeah, I edit videos. Let me make some trailers for you or something. I'll pay my way.
See, season 2, Joel gets you know what? I won't say the word.
I mean, this is straight House of Trust. He gets a fucking 9-iron to the face, ladies and gentlemen, which is kind of what I want to ask you guys, or you specifically, Brett, because I kind of already know where Josh and Jordan are coming from with this next season, where they could see it being kind of more of a in Jackson season, and it's more in between the first and second game. Are you on that train, or do you think they'll pick up right at the second game? Because going into... By the way, if you want to know what we want from season 2 in more depth with more people from Shared Screens, we have a podcast up right now on Shared Screens. It's a media club where we get really into the nitty gritty of what we want from season 2. And in that, Jordan, Josh, and Alec kind of talked me into a theory that I didn't think had a lot of water, of season 2 being more about the in-between of the seasons. And I think it could go either way. Where do you kind of lie? Do you think that they would kind of expand more on the dynamic between Pedro and Ellie and her finding out, but saving some of those scenes for the second or for the third season that are in the second game that are kind of like more heavy hitters to give more context to what happened in season 2? Because that's where I'm kind of coming down on it.
Based off of how they adapted season 1, I'm going to say no.
Okay.
Because, again... but I've seen a lot of discourse online throughout the season that it should have been longer, right? At least that's what I've seen. You know, social media algorithms show you all sorts of stuff depending on who you are. So
yeah.
So I saw a lot of people saying it could have been longer, and so I think Some HBO exec said it was going to be a 3-season show, but like Neil and Craig said it's 2. So I'm going with the creative people and saying it's 2. So I think I think the more likely that like route is they're going to have Joel die at the end of episode 1. They could do one episode of season 2 where it's like day in the life. You see the growth, but we already know Joel and Ellie care about each other. So, and there's a lot of stuff in part 2. So I think they off him in episode 1 again. Big hook to get people talking, around the water cooler. So I think they come off episode 1, season 2.
I did not know that Craig Mazin and Neil had kind of said that it was going to be 2 seasons. Because if they did say that, I would assume it was before the third game was announced. Because the third game was announced around like episode 5 or 6, I believe. Is that they've
never really? I don't think they've officially announced a part 3.
They've said that they're working on the next.
That there is a story. I think is like the most they've said, in the sense that like there's an idea. Will that idea come to fruition? How long?
What I meant by that is they're doing the show based off of part 1 and 2. If whenever 3 comes out in like 5 years, then they'll do a season 3. Maybe, I don't know how that would align with like the actors and stuff, but that's what I think.
It's definitely interesting now that they, I remember part 1 coming out, and there was years before we got confirmation that a part 2 even exists, let alone years before part 2 came out. To the point that some people are like, hey, maybe this doesn't need a sequel. Maybe this is a one-off and the ambiguous ending is there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that part 2 ends and I go, there has to be a part 3, the way that 1 didn't necessarily make you think there has to be a part 2. But I think part 2 ends in a way where you go, oh, maybe there's a trilogy to be told here. In the sense that, like in classic trilogy fashion, the second part of that story has a darker ending.
We talked about it before. We talked about they have to make Ellie's immunity matter. Mm-hmm. Repeating myself, but yeah, with like Walking Dead and other zombie shows, when they don't get to the point of that, it's like such a big like nitpick for me, and so they have to either kill her off and then it's like, hey, that really is off the board now, or they have to have something and maybe she has the agency and she takes it. Yeah, I don't know, but they flip it or reverse it, whatever, Missy Elliott style. So I don't know what they're gonna do with that, but they have to address it, because I think you said to Jordan on one of the episodes, like in part 2, they don't really like focus on that, even though that's like that's what makes her unique.
Yeah.
For better or worse. So
from what I could find, it does seem like they have found a story that is worth telling. They were renewed for the second season in the midst of all of this kind of coming out, so I got a little conflated. And kind of doubling back, I am one of those people that when I finished the original game and Neil had said that there wasn't going to be another one, I was fine with that. And when they said they were making a second game, I was actually a little hesitant, because I think that the story of this season of television we just watched, I think is perfect. The ending, especially, where there is this decision and there is a little bit of like Ellie in her heart knows, but can't bring herself to actually ask herself if he did what she thinks that he did. And I think that ambiguity, a lot of my favorite movies being Inception, Interstellar, Shutter Island, those types of things. Those aren't all my favorite movies, just those types of movies with these ambiguous endings that leaves it up to the viewer. I really like that type of shit, because it kind of, everybody has their own unique way that it ends. And so if it does end at season 2, I'm not going to be the most upset, because I do think that having season 2 be about revenge and kind of the inverse of what Ellie turns into. But I wouldn't be remiss if I said that I think that they need to conclude this with the third iteration that kind of like really makes her immunity matter, just like Brett was saying. All right.
What if we get what if we get a Game of Thrones situation where HBO/Discovery, because Discovery's like, we want to change the name of HBO Max.
I'm
like,
so
what if they're
upset
like
about that, bro?
What are they changing it to?
Oh, it's not that they
Nothing-
want to.
They're like, yeah, HBO scares people away or whatever.
They said that Warner Brothers Discovery executives said they think that the HBO in HBO Max drives away potential subscribers, as if the HBO is not what brings people in.
That is the interesting thing, because I have had multiple conversation with like people I know in my day-to-day life, people I would say are normies, who think of HBO as having the quality adult television that Netflix isn't quite bringing, that Amazon is starting to bring with their shows like The Rings of Power and Clarkston Farms and such. But
The Boys.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you look at HBO, they're kind of the king of streaming in a lot of my normies friends' minds.
I mean, I would say streaming, even before the age of streaming, the name of HBO meant something. The Sopranos was on HBO. When Breaking Bad was getting big and it was on AMC, people were saying it, oh, it's like an HBO show. Like an HBO show means something.
Yes. And I think to kind of like throw a little bit of like a left hook, sorry, Disney Plus, you're catching flies out in left field. I feel like it's what Disney Plus wants to be, but they haven't quite nailed that market yet. I feel like Disney Plus wants to be the family version of HBO Max.
I mean, in a way, I think
feel
Disney
like-
Plus is still, but they still understand that what the weight of the name Disney means. Like, they're not going to change it to what, like Mickey Plus or D Plus, because they want to make it less childlike. Like, they know the word Disney and the weight that holds in society.
Well,
and
I mean, Warner Discovery ruined Rooster Teeth, so what do we expect them to do with HBO? They're going to try to pull the same shit. I digress. I'm sorry, Rooster Teeth. I had to throw that in there.
Basically, what I was bringing up was like, what if we get to a Game of Thrones situation where HBO wants a season 3 and they have not fully written the story yet for
then give
the
us
game?
flashbacks, bro. Give us more of the flashbacks.
If I am being honest, I can see them doing that, but I can see Craig Mazin respecting Neil Druckmann enough to be like, I'm not doing that. Because I, like, through listening to the podcast on Spotify every week, that is Troy Baker, Craig Mazin, and Neil Druckmann, there's a respect there that I think.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see that. And at that point, you get into Witcher season 2 and season 3 territory, where it's lost the heart of what made it good in the first place.
I would make a more direct comparison. Look at how attached Neil Druckmann is to this project. He's an executive producer. He was announced from the very beginning, Neil Druckmann will be working closely with the writers. He directed a few of the episodes. Compare that to the Uncharted movie, where Amy Hennig or Neil Druckmann as well, not involved with that movie at all. I am convinced that the reason that Neil Druckmann is working so close with this project is because I think he has approval on a lot of this stuff. I'll preface this with, fucker, but J.K. Rowling had a good hand in the process of making the movies, in terms of, not necessarily I don't know if it would be as big of an approval or denial like power that Neil has with this, but at least the ability to say like, well, you can't do that because I have plans for that later.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'll talk to this actor about something that you guys don't know, but this actor should know about their character. Like, and that's I think that is what helps good adaptations, is when you still have people that were there for the creation of the initial project helping you translate it, because they know the project the best. They know what should be left in and what has the ability to be changed or cut out.
So my question to you guys, and kind of a thought exercise, it doesn't necessarily have to do with The Last of Us HBO, but I feel like it has to do with the audience who has watched this deep into this podcast. I'm assuming if you watch this deep into the podcast, you care about maybe a little bit of what PlayStation has to offer, considering the show that you have just watched, right? And so do you think that this puts a different onus on Amazon going forward with maybe hiring, I forget the man's name, but the excellent director that gave
Corey?
not
Corey
Corey
Barlog.
Barlog, but I was talking about the man who did Ragnarok, as well as Corey Barlog, bringing them on, because there was a different director for God of War Ragnarok,
Yeah.
correct? I forget the man's name, but
Eric something?
Eric, yes. Do you think that pulls more onus onto them, and there's going to be? Do you think that this makes them rethink that the route that they're taking, if they haven't already started taking the steps that Neil and HBO took? Because I've seen Corey respond to shit like that on on Twitter. So I don't think the ball would be necessarily in Corey's court. Do you think Amazon will take this seriously, Jordan?
So I think it depends on what is the God of War series trying to do. God of War Ragnarok or God of War 2018 is not the first God of War game.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the you have the original trilogy, you have the side games, the PSP games, you have the Greek saga versus the Norse saga. We don't know what they're adapting. Are they going to try to find a way to adapt all of it? Are they going to make it more? Are they going to use the lore that world has built and do something completely different? Or do they want to translate God of War 2018, the video game, into a show, followed by God of War Ragnarok into a show? And I think that those are the differences, because just to talk about what else PlayStation has to offer. Twisted Metal is definitely going to be, we are taking the initial idea, the spark of this game, and we are expanding it. Good or not good, and obviously you cannot compare Twisted Metal to God of War or The Last of Us.
That's a racing game, right, for you at home that don't know what Twisted Metal is.
Racing / car combat, Mad Max style thing, but like there is the ability there to be like, let's tell the story that we couldn't tell on a PS1 format, or let's tell a story takes place within this world or a retelling. You also have Horizon Forbidden West / Horizon Zero Dawn, which for non-gamers is a game that takes place post-apocalyptic after humanity's been run over by robot animal dinosaurs. I know it sounds weird, but however, I think in that one, it's been confirmed they're not adapting Aloy's story. They are adapting what happened to the world that led them to the events we see in the game. We're going to get more of the corporate story that like we get hints of in the games. So the director working close, I think, depends on what are they doing with the IP.
So to kind of rebuttal that, I would say no matter what, it's kind of important to have these people on, because I'm not sure of the director of Horizon, but I do feel like the intrigue and the popularity of those games would just lend to like, hey, what is your story? So that way, like, because I do think that the groundswell around The Last of Us has a large part to do with its roots in gaming. And, every family has the one kid that plays games. And that one kid knows The Last of Us. And that one kid also probably knows what Horizon is. And so I feel like it would behoove them to make sure that it's as accurate as possible, because that's where I'm coming in, is if Amazon hasn't already hired Cory Barlog and Eric, they fucking need to. Are you kind of on that same line of thinking as I am, Brett, or where do you fall on this kind of conversation?
Yeah, I think there's obviously a great benefit to having the writers of the original material be involved. And again, like with everything, it's not always good, it's not always bad. You look at, I brought up Game of Thrones earlier, for most of it, it was involved somewhat, but it was largely, these two guys who had no original connection to the source material. Again, kind of another, like with House of the Dragon, like, all the folks involved with that weren't like originally connected to the source material. So I feel like sometimes having a third person perspective, like when you're not intimately involved in the original work, I think can be good. But yeah, clearly with The Last of Us, I think it greatly benefited the show, because you brought up like the kiss at episode 2. Like we might have gotten way more of that kind of stuff. Although Craig Mazin's like legit, so probably not. But yeah, I don't think it's a necessity. No.
Okay, that's a good kind of rebuttal to my kind of harshness on it. I think movies like Uncharted or shows like,
I was gonna say,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, like all the adaptations I brought up were like books, and those have been adapted way more. I would say it's probably easier to adapt, because the big thing we talked about with The Last of Us was, oh yeah, in hospital he kills like 40 dudes, and in the show he kills like 10 or whatever. And so it's very easy, I feel like, to poorly adapt a video game story, because a lot of it is just told in completely different ways, and book to movie, book to TV show, which is a little more one-to-one.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I feel like maybe with game adaptions we need that connection, because I feel like Neil was able to translate that excellently.
I think maybe, you guys kind of turned me around on it. Like, maybe not necessarily having the director there, but having a severe amount of respect for the source material, because I think with shows like Halo is the prime example where they didn't have the respect, and you look at what they did with the show and you can't help but think what could have been had they had that respect. You look at movies like Uncharted, and while Uncharted was good in its own right, it's nothing that it could have been had they had that respect. Go ahead, Jordan.
I'm not even making a joke when I say this. Look at the trailers for the Mario movie. Mario is a much more open-ended IP because there's a very generic story, but there's so many iterations. There's Mario Tennis, there's Mario Kart, there's Super Mario World, there's how Mario is technically connected to Donkey Kong.
Just Smash
and you look
Bros.
At the trailers,
and all this shit, and
and you look at the trailers for this movie. As of time of recording, we're 3-4 weeks away from this movie. Like we just got the last trailer. Down to the music, the references they're making. There is an inherent, and I think I've said it on other podcasts, and I use the word respect for the IP. They are not saying, well, it's Mario, we can make it whatever we want. Everybody knows who this is. Like, there is if not a respect, there is a love there, like beyond that respect, that they are trying to actually keep the heart of the franchise there.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying this as a joke. Like, I think that there is a respect that they took with that Mario adaptation.
And I think that's why everybody's kind of done a 180 on it, from hating the fact that it was Chris Pratt to now like understanding, because we've kind of like have a little bit more in tune with the goings on. And I do think that kind of these adaptations, in my opinion, the good ones fall into the two categories. The ones like Mario, I hope, and Sonic, where it has an extreme love for the source material, but isn't a one-to-one. And then we have
Detective Pikachu.
Yes, that was the third one I was thinking of. Is Detective Pikachu it has that love and that respect for the source material, and then you have things like The Last of Us that are very much, more of a House of the Dragon retelling of the story, where House of the Dragon has that respect to the source material. And I would go as far as to say that I think the reason Game of Thrones was so good is because those first few seasons had a respect for the source material, and I think that's why everybody was so disappointed with the last few, is because there wasn't source material to have respect to. But I digest, ladies and gentlemen. We've been talking here off for quite a while, over an hour and a half at this point, so I'm just going to kind of cut her off there. I know we're going to talk about this more on media clubs and many a show going on. So if you want to catch that content, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Leave us a comment down below what your favorite scene/episode was from this season. And also let us know what you would like from season 2, whether it be the straight into part 2 of the game or that in-between season. I'd love to know, and we always appreciate those comments. Brett, tell the people where they can find you, and where's a good place to contact you if they just want to let you know how good this podcast was.
Yeah, so I'm on shared screens, so anything here I'm usually involved, especially with the Star Wars and Marvel kind of pop culture stuff and gaming. You can find me on Twitter at Jim Tasty Tweets. Super active on there, so if you hit me up, I will definitely reply. And yeah, I stream on occasion and play all sorts of fun games like The Last of Us. So
hell yeah, a lot of good multiplayer madness happening over on that channel, or on your Twitch channel, I know as well. Been getting a lot of shout outs, and I just gotta say, I love to see it. You are goated, and you carry me every time we game. Jordan, where can people find you?
People can find me on Twitter at Jordan_Deeb. DMs are open, whether you want to discuss this or take me out. They're open either way, buddy.
And let me tell you what, if you want to follow a Twitter account that's just as likely to really just make you question existence as to get a viral tweet, follow Jordan, because it's always a good time. My name's Chance. You can follow me at It's for Chance on pretty much everything. And until next time, it's been great. It's been wonderful. This has to mean something. Take it easy, ladies and gentlemen.